Good evening and welcome. First it was 255, then 225, and now it is 237. What are we talking about? We're obviously talking about the number of seats allocated for parliamentarians in Parliament, the 20th Amendment to the Constitution and the future. Our guests this evening are Mr. Kirti Tennakon, Executive Director of the Campaign for Free and Fair Election, Mr. Rohana Hettiarachchi, Executive Director, PAFRL, Luvi Ganesadasan, Consultant, Centre for Monitoring Election Violence, and also Mr. Ashoka Abhay Gunawardena, Chairman, CEO, Strategic Enterprise Management Agency, and member of the Drafting Committee of the 20th Amendment to the Constitution. So let's start off with Mr. Kirti Tennakon, Executive Director of CAFE. How important is it to have the 20th Amendment to the Constitution adopted in Parliament?
The 20th Amendment was the much talked about issue when it comes to the electoral reforms and when it comes to the constitutional reforms during the last 4 months almost. And we think that if the constitutional amendments to this country, the most important and most significant reform so far introduced during the last 4 months is the present the proposal today approved through the cabinet, and that will definitely help to change the political culture of this country. And more important, we were talking about the 20th Amendment to abolish the MANAPE, the preferential voting system in this country, and going back to the electoral system, which is having a very significant impact when it comes to the whole nation, and responsible politics at the grassroots levels, at the district levels, or the electoral levels, or even at the national levels, has come through the electoral systems. So once again, going back to the first past the post system or to the electoral system will definitely help to change the whole political culture, which was much talked about issue in a negative way, and which has a very big negative impact on the social and political culture of this country. The whole thing can be changed with that, and more importantly, the integrity of the system will change, and it has big questions with the role of the politicians during the last 2 decades for sure. And more important, I think, above all, that we are saying goodbye to the MANAPE, which is very significant when it comes to the overall impact.
Ms. Tennakon, I want to ask you a question with regard to election violence. Your organization has reported over the last few elections that there has been a rapid increase of election-related violence because of this preferential voting system in place. Will this new system in any way help curtail this number or reduce this number drastically in the future?
Definitely, because I mean there's so much of candidates getting involved in one small electorate is causing so much of problems, especially when it comes to the election violence. And abuse of state property going in the same manner, in the same course, has having problems creating when it comes to this issue. So we are very strongly believing that the election violence, number of incidents reporting will definitely decrease with the introduction of the new system, with the 20th Amendment. And moreover, the abuse of state property will decrease, because I mean the candidates, the political parties contesting do not need so much resources like these days to do their campaigning at the district levels.
Thank you very much. That of course was Mr. Kirti Tennakon, Executive Director of Campaign for Free and Fair Election. I now move on to Mr. Rohana Hettiarachchi, Executive Director of PAFRL. My question to you is, opening question to you is, Mr. Hettiarachchi, on the 12th of March, 12th of March this year, you all had a declaration in terms of who should be selected to Parliament and how the criteria should be. My question to you is now, Mr. Hettiarachchi, taking into account this declaration, the amendment that was proposed by the President today, will this be beneficial for this declaration in question that was signed by nearly 14 political party representatives? Your time starts.
Of course, yes. I think if we were able to change the system with the PR and the pass, the mixed system which we have already proposed. So this March 12 declaration could be very important document, because in the present system still you do have some selections as a voters. You can select your political party as well as you can select your candidate. But with the proposed system, the political party has to decide who will represent which electorate. So the voters doesn't have any choice. So with the present the system, especially the party democracy is a big issue in the country. In the ruling party, opposition, all the major parties, party democracy is a big issue. So with that scenario, the quality candidate is a very important issue, because otherwise the party leader can decide himself which person going to be elected in the coming election. Because in the some political parties, they have their voter base. Right, some electorate, the party leaders knows this electorate, we will lose. This electorate we will get majority. So party leader can decide who will nominate which electorate. That is one area. And also, if they were unable to select a proper people, voters doesn't have any choice. So in that scenario, I think this is very important for the coming coming proposals.
Mr. Director, you spoke about quality candidates. Can you define a little bit about this?
Actually, it's hardly difficult. Because in the present the political culture, I think all the tiers, the local level, provincial level, parliamentary level, these allegations towards all the representative, right? But the quality means we very simply whether these people are corrupted people. And whether they are qualified enough to representing the relevant authority. For example, the parliamentary. The parliament mainly focus for the policy and the law, right? So whether our representative are qualified enough to make the law on behalf of their representative, whether they are qualified enough to make some policy on behalf of their representative. So those are some of the key. We have identified there are 8 kind of principal criteria. So it's hardly difficult to find this kind of people even in the coming elections. I think political party will be in a big trouble. But as the citizens of the country, we have to pressurize. Otherwise, whether the 19th amendment pass, whether the 20th pass, but the quality of the representative is much more important than the system.
Thank you very much. That, of course, was Mr. Rohane Tyarwachi, Executive Director of PAFRIL. I now move on to Mr. Luvi Ganeshadasan, a consultant at the Center for Monitoring Election Violence. Quality candidates. Do we have quality people in Parliament?
It's a loaded question. I suppose everyone will agree that the current representatives in Parliament aren't the best representatives that we have. I think a lot of people agree that the existing electoral system incentivizes a particular type of candidate to go into Parliament, a particular type of candidate to be nominated, a particular type of candidate to be able to win the election. And the characteristics of that kind of a candidate who can be nominated and who can win an election isn't necessarily compatible to the principles that Mr. Tyarwachi talked about a little while ago. So I think the short answer to your question is no. But if I can just get into talking about the current electoral reform debate, the Center for Monitoring Election Violence has from the outset been very clear with what we've said. What we've said is that electoral reform should be done with broad principles in mind. We shouldn't be doing electoral reform based on political compulsions. What we see now, the debate is driven by political compulsions. On one hand, you have a group of political actors who want to have electoral reform to fulfill a promise, and this has been a promise that both the United National Party and the then PA made as way back as 1994. And on the other hand, you have a group of people who want to get something done because they want to have quick elections. We think that those sort of compulsions don't necessarily lead to the best possible electoral system that we could have for Sri Lanka. And it's important when you're designing an electoral system to think about what do we want our electoral system to be. And in that, we have to ask ourselves the question, what is Parliament's role? What is Parliament meant to do for this country? Do we want people in Parliament to only decide on constituency issues, or do we want people in Parliament to have the background to be able to decide larger policy questions? And then we have to decide, okay, what sort of electoral system will ensure that these kind of candidates enter into Parliament? And one of the main things, and one of the systems that has been advocated since 1994 is the German mixed system, which has both the components of the first past the post system and the proportional representation system, which is used as a topping up to cut out the imbalances in the first past the post system. It also has two ballots. So the voter can decide, I want my constituency candidate to be X because I think he looks after my constituency interests better. I want the vote for the political party to go to party Y because I think their views need to be represented in Parliament as well. And that's been the stance our organization has been taking right from the beginning.
Thank you very much. That, of course, was Mr. Luvia Ganeshadasan, consultant for the Centre for Monitoring Election Violence. I now move on to Mr. Ashoka Abe Gunawardana, Chairman, CEO, Strategic Enterprise Management Agency, and also member of the Drafting Committee of the 20th Amendment to the Constitution. Now, CAFE, PAFREL, and CMEV are of the opinion that not the best representatives are there in Parliament. How will this new electoral reforms be different?
Yeah.
The time starts now.
Yes, now there are two key objectives of this new proposal. That is to get rid of Manape or the preferential voting system, which led to all these issues we discussed just now. So getting rid of Manape and reintroducing polling divisions or the electorates we were originally having. That's the pre-1978 era we had these FPPs. So getting rid of Manape and reintroducing electoral system. While doing that, we need to ensure that we need to maintain the proportionate representation in the Parliament, because that had a very great advantage over the FPP we originally had. What's the main reason for that is that while adapting the earlier method, the FPP method, the leading party will get a clear majority in the Parliament, and the second leading party and the minor parties will get only few seats in the Parliament. For instance, in 1977 we had only 8 seats for the second major party, and with the introduction of the proportionate system, we were able to achieve a certain goal to give a fair representation to all the other parties. That has happened. So whatever the change we make, we need to ensure that this proportionate system still exists. So the basis is, with the new system, the basis is still the proportionate system. We originally had district proportionate system for 196 seats, and we had 29 national proportionate seats. So for the 196, the method used to select a particular candidate is called Manape or the preferential voting. But the proportionate basis decides the number of seats allocated for each and every party in each and every district. So the numbers are decided by proportionate system, but the person who has won, the candidate who is elected as the MP, is based on the preferential voting number of votes received. So while getting rid of proportionate the Manape or the preferential voting system, we reintroduce the electoral system. That means instead of Manape, we have now the polling divisions. So in this case, the candidate is contesting only for a particular polling division. So based on the percentage or the party which won the electorate, that particular candidate will get an allocation in the Parliament based on the number of numbers decided by the proportionate system. So instead of preferential voting system, we have the polling divisions, and the candidates who win the polling divisions will go to the parliament, and some few others will go to the parliament still without winning a polling division because of the allocation there for the proportional representation for the other parties.
Thank you very much. That, of course, was Mr. Asoka Gunawardana, Chairman, CEO, Strategic Enterprise Management Agency, and also a member of the drafting committee of the 20th Amendment to the Constitution. Let me introduce the journalist tonight. On to my right is Nadeem Majid. Good evening, Nadeem.
Good evening, Shamit. Good evening.
On to my immediate left is Sonali Wanagabaduge. And on my far left is Faraz Shaukat Ali.
Good evening.
Good evening, Faraz. So the time starts now, 20 minutes. Let's start off with Sonali.
Thank you, Shamir. Well, my first question is directed at Mr. Asoka Gunawardana. Now, the design of an electoral system is a vital component in democracy. But for this design to be successful, there has to be a greater awareness of this reform, namely in this context the 20th Amendment and its contents, by the citizens. Do the citizens of Sri Lanka have this greater understanding of what has been put on the table, or do we need a greater public discourse?
Well, now this discussion was there for years. So the finding of the previous effort was called the Dinesh Gunawardana Committee finding, which was slightly different from what we are right now proposing. So the ultimate outcome of the previous dialogue was the Dinesh Gunawardana Committee recommendation, which did not satisfy the aspirations of the minor parties. That's why we couldn't implement that since 2007. Since then, we were stuck within that framework, and we couldn't come out of that with a solution. But since the new president, a new initiative began, and under that, a further elevation of the previous proposed method, that's Dinesh Gunawardana method, that was slightly improved by increasing the 225 to 255, and came using the same method. But that still had the same weakness in the method, because while increasing the number of seats in the parliament by 30, still some of the parties had to reduce their number of seats in the parliament because of some weaknesses in that particular method. So against that, another method was proposed, that's the New Zealand method, which was concentrating only on national proportion. So that led to a number of other issues. So the current method we are using is called combined method, a combination of proportionate representation and electoral or the polling divisions. So that combination resolved all the issues of the all parties, and that led us to introduce the new method, which is to get rid of Manape and to introduce the winners of the FPPs coming into the parliament. So the promises of the two main candidates of the presidential election was to get rid of Manape and to ensure that at least there is one MP for each polling division. So this outcome is based on that particular method, and this is, I mean, from the voters' point of view, this is much easier than the previous one. The previous one, we had the ballot paper. On top, we had the party, the symbol, and table. Box to mark the vote. And at the bottom, there were a number of numbers from 1 to 21, or 1 to 8, depending on the district. So the voter had to by heart the numbers and go to the polling booth and cast his vote to the party and to 3 members. They have to by heart the numbers. In this case, that is not that difficult. We just have the ballot paper, which has only party, name of the party, symbol, and
so you mean to say, Mr. Gunawardana, one candidate representing a political party for a polling division. Is that how the system is going to work?
Now, when you look at the nomination list, now it's very much similar to the existing one, which has a district list. But in front of certain candidates, the polling division he is representing is clearly stated there. So he is contesting only for that particular polling division. So as there's an issue that now we have 196 district level proportionate system. So we have originally we had 160 polling divisions. Now the first
165,
proposal,
is it 165
no,
or 160?
originally before 1978 we had 160 polling divisions, and some of them were multi-member seats. Therefore, we had 168. So instead of 160 and 165, the new proposal was 165 to make sure that we can accommodate the concerns of the while we were formulating the previous one.
Now it's 145.
Yes.
Will this
now,
serve the purpose?
the point I want to raise is, irrespective of whether it's 165 or 145, still it's below 196. That means, in addition to contesting for a particular polling division, there should be some additional contestants, candidates as well at the district level. So, district level, certain candidates are contesting for a particular polling division, and there are a few others they are contesting for the whole district. So, while selecting who has won, the first priority goes to the polling division level candidates. So, if they have won the polling division, definitely he will go to the parliament. And in addition, if there is a balance left under the proportionate system, the best loser or the highest number of percentages taken by a candidate in a particular electorate will go to the parliament through the allocation made from that particular party. So that's the method we have used, and in addition, the additional seats, we call it 50-50. Out of the additional seats, 50% goes to the polling division level candidates who have not won the electorates, but the balance 50 goes to the district level candidates, but the person who is elected will be determined by the party as same as what is done for the national list currently.
Mr. Abegunawardena, and also I pose this question to Louis as well, because you mentioned New Zealand. In New Zealand and I believe in Taiwan as well, they follow this system which is called the mixed member proportional, and there's a dual vote, sort of what Louis was talking about, where you can vote for the candidate of your choice and also vote for the party, for let's say party Y, which is more in line with the policies that you believe in, and they need not be from the same party. So taking that into consideration, I want to see if I can create a conversation between the two of you. Louis, do you agree with what Mr. Abegunawardena is proposing through that 20th Amendment?
Sorry, I'm not clear.
Yeah.
Will you be able to split the vote?
Let me explain the difference between the New Zealand method and the method we have proposed. What we wanted to ensure that all parties will get same number of seats they have won under the current system in the future system as well. Because of that reason, we cannot apply the New Zealand method, which is 100% national proportion. Here in this case, we have an allocation for national proportion. Originally we had 29. The proposal we made is to go for 59, and the latest development, it should be 37. This is the national representation. But in addition to that, we have district representation as well. Why we need that category is certain political parties has a firm basis in a particular district, like TNA in the north. So when they go to the national proportion, their quota is diluted. So to make sure that they get the proper representation, we need to split this proportionate basis into two categories. That is, we cannot avoid that, and we cannot use the New Zealand method because of that reason. So that's why we are inheriting the previous method, so we have to make sure that the same allocation is there for all parties. So that's why we have to split this into two: national representation and district representation. That's Understood. Why this new thinking comes into the picture.
Understood. Mr. Eterache, I also want to ask you this question, because we are talking about the quality of the candidates that are coming into Parliament. In the United States, they follow a system of primaries, where the candidates go through a vetting process within the party itself before they actually become the candidate of the party. Is such a system feasible in Sri Lanka? Can you have a system of primaries in Sri Lanka? And through that, can you expect to have quality candidates?
Yeah, actually, if we have a similar system like in US, So we may not in a position to build up this kind of principal criteria, because the issue here is our political culture and the party democracy, and also I mean the representation in a sense is, and then again they are coming from the citizens. And as Mr. Asokal said, this system also pressure the parties to select the candidate, those who can win the elections, considering the money factor or maybe their popularity. So they have to consider certain things. But I think the one is we have to have a sort of principal criteria, the political party, to select their representative, because I think none of the countries except US has a different system. None of the countries do not have this kind of the criteria. But even in Sri Lanka, political parties, nobody knows how they are going to select their representative. Actually, what we ask from the parties, this may be not the solid one, right? There may be any other criteria, but we ask them to use this principle behind these criteria. And also, I think we need to, whatever the change, we have to consider the campaign finance as well.
Isn't that why doesn't the 20th Amendment actually propose, I don't know if it does because it's not available publicly, I just managed to get a copy of one that was published by the Bar Association that again is not very easily accessible to the public, but does the 20th Amendment propose a cap on campaign spending?
Well, this reforms happens at 3 stages. Firstly, the constitutional amendment, and the next steps is to come up with a election act, and the third step to delimitation process. So this particular aspect which we are discussing should come under the second stage when we are passing the electoral act, election act. There we have to have impose certain conditions or the selection criteria, not only of the candidates but also of the performance of the parties as well. How transparent their process and how democratic process they adapt, all these things we need to improve, definitely. There's no question about but that we cannot include that in the constitution. That will be done at through a separate act.
Through an act of parliament.
Let me add something into this. Sri Lanka in the history from 1946 election, the UNP, then thereafter even the leftist parties, they had the primary. Until the J.R. Jayawardena's 1980 era, the whole thing was with when it comes to the UNP, the primaries were, not applied just after 1980 because they had the Balamandala, they had the district systems and all that. Then it is not just when it comes to the electorates, but when it comes to the youth league. If you read the constitution of the youth league of the UNP, if you read the constitution of the SLFP youth front, so it has the primaries basically. The members, they elect these people from different areas, different segments, and then at the national convention, then they are having the voting rights. There are some people who's having the voting rights and people who don't have the voting rights in this system. So that is the basic primaries what the American system talks about. Here the issue, the whole political culture was changed when it comes to just after the 1977.
The introduction of the Manape.
And the other hand, the inner party politics, the inner party democracy in the Sri Lankan political history was down there for so long. The people can challenge the part, for example, until even in 1976, the deputy leaders of the political party, the UNP, was elected from the district organizers or the electoral organizers. So at the convention they were doing that. Until 1993, this practice was done. At the national level, it was continuously done. At the leftist parties, they are coming down there and having the convention, and they are the ones who is doing this. But here, just after 1980 especially, when you go study the political party history here, the whole issue came into the spotlight was now we are not exercising the inner party democracy. That's where the issue comes up. That's where the quality of the candidates coming on. That's
what can you do in Parliament?
Sorry, can I just respond to the previous question? Because the reason I looked at Mr. Abhay Gunawardena is because I was not sure whether this proposed system has that capability of splitting the vote. And from what you explained, I don't think it does.
No.
So that leads to a problem, because even though we are talking about a PR system or proportionate system, you have to look at the mentality of the voter when he goes to the polling booth. Now the current system, the system just explained, will give people the option to vote for candidates from political parties and then transfer that vote when they are calculating the PR vote. So the mentality of the voter needs to be factored into all our calculations as well, and my fear is that it's not being factored into our calculations. And what that does is it deprives the chance for smaller political parties, because if you have a system where the larger political parties campaign in electorates saying, don't vote for this person from the other political party, because you're just wasting your vote if you vote for the JVP, if you vote for the JHU, or if you vote for a smaller political party. Vote for me, I will take care of your constituency, interest. We see this happen all the time. When we have provincial council elections, you have the central government, the party in power in the central government, going to the provinces and saying, don't vote for this other party to come into power in the provincial council because we control the central government. So what is to say this won't happen in the future if we go with this one system where we don't allow votes to be split? And that is a concern that I have, and I think that should be looked at as well.
Can I respond to that?
Yeah.
Now, prior to 1978, I don't think we had that issue to that extent, like what we are witnessing right now. So during that period, we had no manape and only one candidate for a particular electorate from one party. So still, we had a quality representation.
But there was corrupt individuals as well who entered parliament
But not
after
like this.
1976.
Now,
I mean,
when it comes to this particular parliament, there was a 94 members who do not have the O-level qualifications, and 124 plus MPs do not have the A-level qualifications.
Can education be a benchmark for public servants?
It should be.
There should be other sort of qualifications and criteria.
But
like
if you're using, my question is this, if education is a benchmark, now Parliament is meant to be the House of Representatives, representatives of the people. So if you're having, like for example, can a person who is an engineer or a doctor or whoever being elected from, let's say, the Polonnaruwa district, really represent the aspirations of the agrarian community of the Polonnaruwa district, if you go with education as a benchmark?
Well, we shouldn't. I mean, that.
But you just said yes. The education should be a benchmark.
Well, no. I mean, the criteria should be different aspects. Like, if he has an allegation against certain corruption and all stuff, those things we need to. And
you're saying criminal records should be taken into
those things we need to seriously consider, but not the education.
In any case, right now, anyone with a criminal record can't get in. Is that right?
No, yeah.
No, they can. Anyone with a conviction can't. If you're convicted, then there are certain disabilities imposed on you as per Article 99. But if not, if you've just been accused, you can. Can I just add one more point? I think this debate is, we are talking a lot about the quality of candidates. And I think, as Mr. Abeyagowda said, that is more geared towards the Elections Act and seriously looking about changing the political culture and imposing campaign finance reform. Because if we just do the 20th Amendment as it is right now, there is nothing to say that candidates who spend millions canvassing the entire electoral district can't now use the same resources to canvass in the electorate as well. I mean, there's nothing to say they can't do that. So I think if you're looking at the 20th Amendment, we should look at a system which will allow representations of all political opinions. But the conversation right now is allow representations of political parties who are in parliament right now. Why? Because we need the votes to get it passed. And I think that's not probably the best way to approach this.
Can I add?
Yes, Mr. Judge.
I think this is one way of doing. This is the political party has to have some sort of criteria. That is number one. And number two, we have introduced some scorecard for the voters. Actually, we exercised in the last UA elections as well. For the coming elections, we have prepared an scorecard. It's a thousands and thousands leaflet and that card. The voters can assess their candidate. Whatever the party they vote, they can assess their candidate. They can give a sort of marks. Then they can decide which candidate should go into the parliament and which candidate they should vote. So that is one. And the other discussions which we are talking about this Manapaya, and of course with the proposed system, intra-party violence may be reduced, but inter-party violence may be increased, because in the present, I mean, there is a good and bad. the positive and negative. We need to consider the both sides. Even the proposed system, inter-party violence will be increased, because in the present system, candidates do have opportunity to go each and every electorate and collect some vote. But the proposed system, the both major parties has to fight each other in one specific locality. So inter-party violence could be increased, but there should be some other mechanism to control that issue also. Maybe the upper limit of the campaign finance may be one of the area where we can, but there may be other factors has to consider.
For us,
Mr. Asoka, does the 20th Amendment include implement the provision of filing accounts of all candidates? There used to be such a system.
That's not within the Act, the constitutional reform, but that coming under Act.
Right.
So that aspect we need to further improve, because as all the others pointed out, as there is no preferential voting system, then only one candidate will be contesting for a particular electorate. Because of that reason, the other restrictions and limitations should be introduced through the Election Act.
It seems to have been sort of quietly dropped over the years.
No, until you determine what the electoral reform is, as far as the system is concerned, we cannot go for the next step. We need to know what we are proposing. Then only we need to have measures to mitigate any other issues. So once we finalize this, we need to start the dialogue on what should be included in the Election Act.
When it comes to the campaign finance, for example, why they are at this particular junction putting it into the the constitutional reforms is not possible, is that right? We should understand what is the size of the electorate, and once again, when you are putting a number down there as the upper limit, you should be really practical about it, because the electorate is a smaller in size when it comes to the geographical size. So the people in the electorate can simply, have an idea how much this man is, spending on particular electorate. So these people can make a note on this, so they can collect all the information, and if that particular limit is exceeding, definitely they can go for an election petition, which has happened in
for us, Mr. Nicole, we will go for a short commercial break, and then we will discuss, do we have the right electoral system in place? All this and more after the short commercial break. This is Face the Nation. Welcome back. This is Face the Nation. Our topic of discussion today is the 20th Amendment to the Constitution and the future. Second round, we start off with Mr. Asoka Gunawardana. Before that, just a reminder to our viewers, you could log on to our Facebook page, that is Face the Nation on MTV Sports. Like the page, and you could pose your questions to Mr. Gunawardana, Mr. Hettiarachi, Mr. Tennakon, and also Mr. Luvi Ganeshdasan as well. We move on to the second round. We start off with Mr. Asoka Gunawardana. Mr. Gunawardana, will the rights of the minority parties be violated through this new electoral reforms? Because majority of the minority parties fear this new electoral reform system. Will we not have minority parties at all in this new system?
Well, that was the situation of, that was an issue which was discussed under the previous proposal, which was the Dinesh Gunawardana proposal, which had a number of issues. Now, the basis of developing this particular new method is to ensure that all parties will get at least same number of seats they were obtaining under the previous system. So, none of the parties will be disturbed by this particular process. Now, that's why we had to increase, if we are to maintain the number of polling divisions within the range of 160 and 170, then there is no way other than increasing the total number of seats in the parliament by 30, from 225 to 255. That's the basis to make sure that none of the minor parties will be losing. Why we were discussing about 165 or the number between 160 and 170 as the number of polling divisions, including multi-member seat, was to make sure that minority parties will not be disturbed by this process. Once, when we are now this was determined taking into factor all these aspects like the ethnic composition of the country and within the district and within different geographical areas and the number of other issues like caste and other stuff. While we are reducing that, we need to merge these electorates. While doing so, they may feel that they will be losing their territory. They will not be able to get their representative in the parliament because if it's increasing, then other communities will come and change the composition of that particular electorate. That's the exact point we were pushing, that it should be between 160 and 170. Otherwise, there's a danger that minority parties will lose. That's
now there's 145. Will minority parties lose their...
Well, I think that will happen because we need to reduce total number of electoral level members by over 20, because if it's 68, then it will be 23. So that's a difficult task, and I am not sure how soon this delimitation committee will come up with this 145, accommodating all concerns of all communities. That's why we prefer a number of polling divisions above 160. That will lead for an increase of from 225 to 255, mainly because to entertain the concerns of the minor parties or the minority parties.
Very quickly, Mr. Abhay Gunawardena, let's take a particular polling division and you have 2 or 4, let's say 5 political party representatives contesting from 5 different political parties. Let's take a political party has 3 good candidates to field. What happens then?
One
political party has 3 good candidates to field in a particular polling division.
That's not possible within this context because, at the district level, the previous system we had that opportunity, but we cannot have the cake and eat the cake both. We need to get rid of Manape, so we cannot give the option of having more than 1 candidate other than in the multi-member seats. Multi-member seats, you can have, let's assume now if it's equally divided or a certain percentage of Muslims and Sinhala as an example, a particular party can have 1 Muslim candidate and 1 Sinhala candidate. So that's possible, but beyond that, generally we cannot have that rule because we need to get rid of Manape. Otherwise we won't be able to do that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abhay Gunawardena. I move on to Mr. Luvi Ganeshadasan, consultant at the CMEV. You can't have the cake and eat the cake. Do you really want the cake? Is this system really suitable for us? The time starts now, 2 minutes.
See, the system that's been proposed by Mr. Abhay Gunawardena, I think it's an innovative system that's designed to solve a particular problem that exists right now. The problem I've been trying to raise from the beginning is the problem as it exists right now is not the problem that we should be looking to solve. The problem that exists right now is how do you pacify these divergent political opinions and political aspirations of different actors within Parliament who want elections quickly, who want to delay elections, who want to maintain the number of representatives in Parliament. That's the issue that's been canvassed right now. But the real question we should be asking ourselves is, 1, how do we maximize the choice for the electorate? In the sense of, how do we maximize the choice for our voters? Secondly, how do we ensure political representation, be it on ethnic, religious lines or be it on political affiliations? How do we ensure that all of these different political affiliations are represented in Parliament, which, as was talked about earlier, is a place that decides national policy. It's not about whether a doctor from Polonnaruwa will represent his constituencies who are basically agricultural based. It's also about whether the person who is elected will have the capacity to deal with national issues as well, because he might be the member from Polonnaruwa, but he's sitting in the Parliament of Sri Lanka dealing with national issues, and we like to talk about national policies for everything. I saw political scientists that call for a national policy on foreign policy as well, and Parliament decides these types of national policies. So the question that we've been pushing for is, when we are looking at election systems, let's look at it from that perspective and let's try to solve that problem as opposed to trying to solve the problem of political expediency that exists right now.
Thank you very much. That of course was Mr. Luvi Ganeshadasan, representing the Centre for Monitoring Election Violence. Moving on to the Executive Director of PAFREL, Mr. Rohan Hettiarachchi. How do we maximize our choice for our voters? Is this the question that needs an answer? Or do we need a system to be changed completely and move on to a system that will represent the public as a whole?
Yeah, I think that is the issue. Actually, always we were discussing about this Manapaya. Manapaya may be one of the issue, of course, because we are fed up with this system last so many years. We have noticed that inter-party violence always, each and every elections. So that is why people are talking about change the system and go back to the previous system with the electoral basis. But as my friend said, with the proposed system, you will not get the opportunity to select your representative. You can select only on the political party. So in the present system, more democratically, have a space for the voters to select the party as well as the representative. But I think Asoka and this group has discussed about the two ballot papers, one for the party and one for the representative. That also I think can be discussed and improved. But I heard from, I think he's the expert on this, I heard that there are some other difficulties to introduce two ballot papers for the proposed system. But then again, if there is the party democracy, if there is a system for quality candidate, so at least people can satisfy whatever the party representation. But unfortunately, the present system, who the party leaders, if he wanted to some national, even some national politician, if leave him out of the politics, he can decide. So which electorate he should represent. Then if there is based on the block votes on their own parties, party leaders has that authority. So that is the dangerous in the proposed system. But I think once we discuss, actually we as a peripheral, we are really positive with the proposed system. There should definitely, there is no argument, we have to change the system. But there are some factors need to be discussed, not really the numbers. Numbers, of course, we are talking about mostly talking about the numbers. But there are other factors has to discuss among the public, or at least among some relevant groups, and we have to have some sort of answers for these voters' choice.
Welcome back. This is Face the Nation. My question is posed to Mr. Keith Thendakone representing CAFE. Mr. Thendakone, how important is it to have minority party representation in Parliament?
We were talking about the inclusiveness when the break was taking place. And as I said, I mean, we should, as a civilized society, our duty is to get all the people, all the communities, all the segments of the country to represent them in the Parliament. As far as we can do, how far we can go on that road is the civilized way what we can talk about it. So getting all the people, all the inclusiveness possible to the Parliament is the key. Right. We were talking about the minorities and how the minorities should react to this, and the other hand, it is not the ethnical minorities we are talking about. It's the smaller political parties like JHU, it's like the JVP, the Kadurata Janata Peramuna, and all the political parties who has represented the Parliament during the last time, and the political groups or the pressure groups even who was willing to come into the Parliament, who was having the capability of coming to the Parliament, has to be included in the parliamentary system. Now, when we talked about these electoral systems, why this 255 number is more important than anything else was discussed very widely. We were talking about the inclusiveness, and we want to open the doors to the groups and the parties which we have excluded from the system. For example, if we are talking about the female representation, Sri Lanka, when it comes to the female representation, is one of the lowest in the world. So we want to include them in the Parliament. So we have to open the gates for them. That's why we proposed to increase the number of nationalist MPs from 29 to 59. When we open it, there are more space. The smaller political parties will have, so they can ensure the representation in the parliament. But here it's very unfortunate that at the last days, of course, when we had the discussion, the number was once again reduced to 37 at the today's cabinet. Still, we believe that that number can be increased, the national list number can be increased, so all the communities can included in the parliamentary system.
Right, thank you very much, Mr. Tendakon. We start off our Q&A from our journalists with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
I think this question's for Mr. Asoka here. You talk about all these different changes and to get the right quality, but it strikes me as being odd that the funding process is not transparent. There is no sort of official system, and if it was, and everybody has to declare it, then most of the corruption will be out, because once they're in power, there's no question of somebody coming in asking for a deal, because it's all transparent, their donations transparent. So you get the candidate accountable, the donor accountable. It may not have to be tax deductible, but why is that system not here?
Well, it will be introduced at the next stage. Now, Election Act will specifically mention all these things you mentioned. Now, now at that level, at that stage, we can seriously discuss these issues, and we can incorporate all these concerns in the Act. Now, the point I am trying to highlight at this stage is that which refers to the constitutional reform. Now, the incremental advantage they can get by spending more money under the present system is very high when compared with the incremental benefit they can get from contesting a polling division. Well, we cannot have conditions that they cannot spend money, but the incremental benefit they can get is very minimal or negligible, because the person who is contesting for that polling division is the chief organizer of that particular electorate or from that particular party. So he has the network. He has the branches, all those things. It's firmly rooted. So he does not need to spend money to market himself. But when he is now, even at present, most of the candidates are from a particular polling division. He is the chief organizer of a particular polling division, but he has to collect manape from all the other divisions as well. That's why he has to market himself right throughout the district aggressively. For that we need money, because the people are not aware of him in the other polling divisions. So getting rid of this manape and limiting the candidate to a polling division itself will resolve this issue to a greater extent, because incremental benefit he can get from spending more money is negligible. That's my first point. Is it okay I go to the...
Yes, please.
Yeah. Now, the other question is, now the disagreements and agreements with respect to this particular proposal. I can assure you that only, other than one party, all the other parties are in agreement with the proposed system. The only party who are not in favor of this system is MEP. That's Mahajan Eksat Perumana. They want to maintain their previous proposal, which is the Dinesh Gunawardena proposal. So, other than MEP, all the other parties are in agreement with the concept or the method. And another party is against the number which we propose, 255. That's the UNP. UNP is challenging the 255 number, and they want to maintain the 225. As a balance, now we have come up with a conclusion that with 237. But other than UNP, all the other parties are in agreement with the 255 number. Now, even the UPFA now, day before yesterday, they took a decision at the party leaders level that minimum number of polling divisions should be 160 and the maximum total number of seats in the parliament should be 255. So within that framework, easily we can find the solution. And in addition to the major party, all the minor parties are comfortable with the proposed system. Now the difference is, now there are other proposals like 2 ballot papers. Now I have to answer this question because this was previously proposed. Now SLMC proposed 2 ballot paper system. What is this 2 ballot paper system? There we can 1 ballot paper in a particular color to vote for a particular candidate of that polling division, and another ballot paper in a different color for the party. This gives the voter a freedom to vote for a party and a candidate of a different party. That's the difference between the existing method and the previous. Existing method, he can vote for 3 candidates from the same party. We cannot achieve that through 2 ballot papers. If the voter is going for 2 ballot papers to do different, then 1 ballot paper he will vote for 1 party, and if he is choosing another candidate, then it should be from a different party. So at that level, I think to a greater extent, all voters will use as vote for the same symbol, irrespective of whether voting for a party or a candidate.
So what's wrong with the dual ballot?
Yes, that's exactly the point. Yeah. Now let's assume a case where now this was proposed by Muslim SLMC. Why a Muslim he will be comfortable with a candidate of a major party, and he can vote for that. In addition, he can vote for the SLMC as well. That's the advantage we can get. But we are not against 2 ballot papers. The issue we face is, now let's try this let's assume for JVP we are using that. Now when JVP is contesting separately, they will get maximum of 1 or 2 members in the parliament based on proportionate basis. But when they are contesting from an alliance, our experience is that they got the highest preferential voting. The JVP candidates got the highest preferential voting, overtaking the major leaders of the SLFP.
Yeah.
So if that condition mindset applies to this particular one, then there's a probability that SLFP, if JVP is contesting separately, if a voter is voting for SLFP candidate in that particular electorate, and he wishes to give another vote to the JVP, then he can use that. If that happens, then our model indicate that the overhanging will be higher. That means, in a nutshell, that means we cannot accommodate this aspect within 255. Then our condition is that, well, we are not against these 2 ballot papers, but if you are doing so, then we need to increase the margin, and that is the national list, that is at least by another 10 to 265. If all parties are in agreement, we are not against this proposal.
As election monitors, where do the 3 of you stand on this, the dual ballot paper system?
We are totally for the dual ballot papers, but as Ashoka very correctly explained, that when you come to the statistical analysis of the dual ballot system, we need to increase the number at least 10 to 12. We had some statistical calculations on this, so that proves that at least if we are going to accommodate the overhang, it should be somewhere around 10 to 12. The issue here, we are proposing a system with 255, where the one major political party of this country is not try to accommodate it, which is not going smoothly and accommodating it. So how with this issue of increasing further number of MPs to the parliament can be done? My stand is very clear. Yes, we can do with the two ballot in this election. Or I'll say in some countries they have done the first round with the single ballot. Then they have reintroduced the second dual ballot at the stage 2. So let's get the system run at the first stage. Then in the next stage, definitely we can
implement the reforms in stages.
Reform in stages, and in the second election maybe we can try with the dual ballot, which is more democratic, of course. We give the the voters more option on it.
Louis, your thoughts on this?
Just 2 points in that. I think again here we are looking at the problem in reverse, because I with respect I say that you work within certain political realities, and we are looking at it from the numbers. We say Mr. Abhigunawardena explained very clearly what are the practical difficulties in doing this, and this difficulty is a practical difficulty. We have not done anything to study and to try to identify what is the ideal number of electorates that this country needs. What we are going on is, this political party doesn't want to go above this political party doesn't want to go below this, so we'll go for this, right? And that is extremely dangerous, especially even for this election, because we're talking about the next election where the parliament and all the political parties are talking about this will draft a new constitution. We had this same problem in the 1972 constitution, we had this same problem in the 1978 constitution, where the constitutions were drafted by parliaments which are not representative of the political will of the people. The percentage of votes both of those political parties, the United Front in 1972 and the UNP in 1977 received, was far less than the number of seats they got. Now here what you'll have is, you'll have a system again, probably not the same extent, but where the will of the people will not be reflected in parliament. And we have to ask ourselves, do we want another constitution in a parliament like that? And which is what I personally find hugely problematic, that we're talking about incremental changes without looking at the long run, looking at larger constitutional reform.
What you're proposing sounds, because you have to contend with political realities as well at the end of the day, what you're proposing sounds almost utopian, don't you think so?
No, not necessarily, because see, the issue here is this: both, like at one point of time, both the two main political parties agreed on a system where the FPP electorates and the proportional representative the seats are fairly equal, 125, 100, or the numbers were fairly equal. Now it's changed. It's changed because of political expediency, and what we are trying to do is make use of that political expediency to pass electoral reform. That worked okay with the 19th Amendment, but there were problems there as well. My fear is, with something as technical as electoral reform and something as vital as electoral reform, if you try to do that, we are going to end up in a mess.
Mr. Raj, very quickly, do you want to add anything to this?
Actually, with due respect what Asoka said, but we are talking about the practical difficulties. But if we are agree in principle, the voters has to have their choice, so we can find out the way. Because in whatever the proposal now come out with the approval from the cabinet, there were a couple of proposals we were discussed in the past. So something like that, if Asoka, I think he within a couple of days time, if he really consider this factor, I think we may come out with some other proposal. But the important thing is, we have to agree this principle. Voters has to have this choice, the party as well as the candidate. Not maybe the same system which we exercising now, but there could be some new system.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tiavachi. We go in for a short commercial break. When we come back, Face the Nation returns. Thank you very much, and welcome back to Face the Nation. This is the final round. Mr. Abhigunawardena, let's start off from you. 1977, the Central Colombo electorate, or the polling division, you see Ranasinghe Premadasa coming into the forefront. We see Mr. Halim representing the Muslim community, and then we see a Tamil candidate also coming to the forefront. That is the FPPS system as well, 1977. This system, does it really represent the minority communities?
Yes, actually now the minor parties, now we have minor parties which are not based on a particular community, like JVP. The other minority parties, we can divide them into two categories, like geographical area based parties like TNA and Tamil parties, and Muslim parties in some in the east, and the other is, it's a mixed group, like in Colombo. Now we have Tamil, Muslim and Sinhalese equally living in within the same geographical area. So now our first attempt is to allocate a particular polling division for each and every community. That's the best thing we can do. So based on that, we will doing that, and it will be done in the upcountry, in the Nuwara district, that will happen, and in the east that will happen, and in the north it will happen. But there are some other pockets which for which we cannot apply this method. That's why we have proposed this multi-member seats, which is the one you mentioned right now. It will be continuing in this new setup, because earlier we had Colombo Central 3-member multi-member seat. Now here we will be introducing this concept to certain geographical areas like Colombo municipality area. Probably will be having only 3 polling divisions, each having 2-member multi-member seats. So that's a possibility. And in addition, there will be other areas as well. Now, the next steps, I wish to, as this is my final round, I wish to say something about the next steps. Now finally we have something approved by the cabinet. Now we can go to the next step. I believe still we have a provision to increase this number to the level which we were targeting at. If we can increase that to 265, then we can go with the 2 ballot papers. If not, at least to 255, so that we can give a fair share to the minor communities. And at the next level, I think we need to go for the delimitation and other stuff. And after passing this, I think we need to rethink. Are we going ahead with the existing method for the new next election, or are we going to adapt the new method for the next election? If you can stay for 3 months, then we can have a fresh, clean parliament after 3 months for the next 5 years. If you cannot, then what will happen? We have to stay another 5 years for us to have this clean parliament.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abhay Gunawardena, for joining us. Moving on to Luvi Ganeshdasan, representing the CMEV. Right system in place, your thoughts?
I don't know what the system in place right now is. I don't think anyone knows what the system right now is, other than what we've heard from Mr. Abhay Gunawardena. So let's hope that it's gazetted and the 2 weeks period is allowed before it's placed on the order paper of Parliament, and then we are able to challenge it if people require in the Supreme Court. Let's hope it's not an urgent bill like the 18th Amendment, so that everyone's views can be taken into consideration.
The President has promised that it won't be an urgent bill. It will be the normal procedure. People could constitutional amendment. So the President has promised that it won't be an urgent bill. So
just to wrap up, let me just make 2 points. I think the system that we design, whatever the outcome it is, has to be tested for proportionality. The percentage of votes that each political party gets has to more or less reflect the number of seats that each political party gets in Parliament. If we have a system which is more favored towards FPP in our push towards trying to get a member of Parliament for every electoral district, I fear the balance will shift towards FPP, and we will have the same problems we had in 1970 and 1977. So that's certainly a bad thing. The second thing is, I think a lot of the political parties are saying that the electoral reform will cure the issue of corruption in elections. As we've seen here, that's not necessarily the case. So if those political parties are so serious about curing corruption and curing election violence during elections, they should seriously consider bringing in election laws which bring in campaign finance regulation, and also which enhance inter-party democracy as well. So all of these political parties right now who are trying to bank on the goodwill of the people or the disgust of the people towards the existing culture when it comes to elections, have to follow through with the promise of bringing in these acts after they pass the 20th Amendment. Unfortunately, our experience in the past has been that this is not always the case.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ganeshdasan. Moving on to Mr. Rohan Hettiaravachi, Executive Director of PAFRL. What is the responsibility of political parties when fielding candidates at future elections?
Yeah, but before that, I wish to appreciate the President. He is very keen on the reforms. I wish to request all the parliamentarian and all other relevant authorities to consider this. Don't play a political game. Whatever the changes, whatever any more requirements, we can do it later. But pass this in this present Parliament. But as you said, I think our humble request for the political party, I think including the Prime Minister and all the political parties has endorsed this Maastricht Declaration, and they agree to apply this principal criteria for the elections. So we wish to request all the parties to apply this criteria for the coming elections. If not, we as a citizens, we as a civil society group, collaborate with other all actors, we are trying to educate the people throughout the country, the coming elections, not to select the bad people in the coming parliamentary elections. I mean, it will apply for all the political parties. So if they are unable to fulfill the requirements, there will be a large scale, actually the March 12 declaration, we changed it March 12 movement now, there are a lot of actors are coming in. So with all of us trying to organize the huge signature campaign throughout the country, so it will badly affect for the parties if they are unable to fulfill the requirement.
Mr. Kirti Tendakon, starting off, closing with your remarks, you said that 37 to 55, the number of nationalist MPs should be increased. Will this really reflect the intellectual community in Sri Lanka? Your time starts now.
Most vocal and the participant members in the parliament have started their careers as the nationalist MPs, and this trend, the opening the space for the national level intellectuals, are the space which creates most of the time from the national list. So increasing the number of the national list definitely help a lot to get the quality members to the parliament. In the other hand, we are lacking women representation in the parliament, and that's why President himself sent an amendment to the cabinet to ensure that every second or the third name coming from the national list should be a female. So getting the female representation at the parliament is a must, and definitely increasing the number of nationalist MPs under this particular system will ensure that the good quality people and the equal representation for the women will come up. Our humble request to all the political parties inside the parliament or the outside the parliament and the pressure groups and the citizens of this country, now the big battle is over at the cabinet. The bigger battle is coming on how to get the 20th amendment sailing very smoothly through the Devanaya.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us right here on Face the Nation. Thank you very much, journalists Nadeem, Sonali and Faraz, for joining us this evening as well. I want to leave you tonight with a quote from former President of South Africa, late Nelson Mandela. It always seems impossible until it's done. The ball is in your court. Thank you very much. Good night.